Welcome everyone to the Boardroom of One. I am incredibly excited and I cannot wait to introduce you to my fellow panelists today. Um, so very early in my career, I actually noticed that I was outgrowing my mentors rather quickly. There was nothing wrong with anyone, not with me, not with them. It was just a matter of me being involved in so many projects within an organization. So I decided, you know what, I am going to get a mentor for each of the areas that I am involved with in my organization. And then one day I realized, oh my goodness, I have a board of directors. So naturally, when I moved to entrepreneurship, it was not a matter of optimizing my advice pool. It was a matter of survival. So I joined the absolute best people I know and suggested this concept today. And you are going to meet these wonderful people today. So without further ado, uh, the next slide, Shannon and Kelly, maybe you can introduce yourselves.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And Neysha, this is such a wonderful concept, and I'm excited to be part of this. My name is Shannon Gregg. I'm the president of Cloud Adoption Solutions. I also am an adjunct professor at Point Park University in Pittsburgh. I love to think about the ways that we are all interconnected as humans, particularly in this age of AI that we're sitting in today. I think being humane and part of humanity is even more critical. And so pleased to be joined by two of the ladies on my personal board of directors today, Neysha and Kelly.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kelly Fetick. I'm the founder and CEO of Landis Consulting Group, a tech staffing firm here in Pittsburgh. I'm so excited to be here today and with two of my favorite humans in the world and excited to get going.
Wonderful. And finally, my name is Neysha Arcelay. I am an executive burnout coach and a corporate well-being strategist. And today I am going to give you a little bit of a cheat sheet that we use and we recommend when suggesting a board. So without further ado, let's get started. So about today, we are going to walk you through this framework that we developed together in order for you to take advantage of your current network and form your own board of directors. We are gonna also give you tangible strategies and actionable tools that you can use while you're navigating this new project of yours. And at the end, you're going to walk out with a challenge that we're going to give you to start building your own board of directors. We are going to have time for questions and answers. However, how we're going to do that is that we're going to leverage Zoom's Q&A capability. You're going to type your questions. I am going to read it, and one of us is going to be answering. All the three of us are going to be answering that question today. So, the first step, identify. Let's go into this area, Shanna.
Perfect. Great. So, when we're thinking through this framework of how you build out your personal board of directors, the first thing you have to do is identify who's going to make up that board for you. And so, you have to first think about where it is that you want to go. So, begin with the end in mind and develop a blueprint. So, you'll outline your personal board and how you want to build that by using a corporate board structure as the blueprint. Now, some of you may be in a corporate organization, some of you may be an organization of one, and that is perfectly fine. But one of the things that we want to encourage you to do is to think through what would be involved in a corporate board. Or what would be the roles that you need to fill so that you can be informed on all of those components. So, for example, a chief financial officer helps an organization know what types of financial decisions should you make? What are the things coming down the pike that you should be thinking about? an operations officer, a technology officer, a human resources officer. So, as you're building out your personal board, you really want to think about that blueprint to say, what are the roles that I need to be filled? And Kelly and Neysha are going to tell you, you'll hear from us over and over again today that your board is a living, breathing organism. So things are going to change. They may shift as you shift, and that's perfectly fine. But we want you to be able to revisit the identify blueprint. So think through who should be represented, what roles should they fill. And we really want you to think about harmonization. Gone are the days of work-life balance. If you are using the term work-life balance, I need you to tell us how you're doing it because we're always on, unless you're in a few select wonderful countries in Europe who say no work emails after 6 p.m. as a mandate. You've got a computer that you're carrying around in your hand that makes you accessible all of the time. Sometimes that is people who expect you to work. Sometimes that is you putting pressure on yourself to work. And so you have to think about what's the harmony between those things? How can I integrate that into my own strategy? But even more important, how can I make sure that that is present in my board? So you want people who will say to you, hey, you've been working really hard. I appreciate it. When are you building in time for rest? Or I haven't seen you take a day off in a very long time. And Kelly and Neysha, I know that's something that you two really encourage in our board structure. We've done some really fun things like I think most recently we went to the Fairmont and had a spa day.
Yes,
Love that.
that was fantastic.
It was fantastic. So you want your board to say, we want your life to be in harmony. So it will never exactly be balanced. One won't exist without the other, but you want it to act in harmony. And then finally, you want your board to act as a company. So you really need to have diversity of thought. If you have people who are exactly like you, doing the same thing, who have the same lens and the same lived experience, they're not going to be able to ask the tough and challenging questions that will allow you to reach your best ultimate outcome. So think really hard about the diversity of one, that board blueprint. So do you have folks that are in finance, sales, marketing, legal, those sorts of things? But do you also have diversity in age, race, experience? Because those people will be able to give you fresh ideas or good knowledge and wisdom that they've experienced. Finally, before I ask my board of directors 2 questions that I think will help you gain additional insights, and you're going to hear this over and over, is your networking has to be authentic. As AI proliferates everywhere and people are starting to recognize M dashes, which breaks my heart because I love an M dash, the authenticity is so critical. So
Yeah.
you have to say, I'm not going to go to an event and try to find people to be in my board and just collect as many cards as I can. You have to say, what is the quality of the people that I'm working with? And so that allows me to transition into a question I have for you first, Neysha, which is, how did you identify what perspectives you needed deeper insights on so that you recruited the right people to your board?
I actually love, Shannon, your point of acting as a company, evaluating what do you need, right? Yeah, a financial person, an HR person. Me, as a one-woman show, I actually focus on my perceived weaknesses. So what I am not good at, and then I go ahead and reach out to people that are good in that area. I still remember vividly I am a trained engineer. So when I went into entrepreneurship, my biggest weakness was sales. So I recruited the best person on sales I know, Miss Kelly Fetick, and I sat down in the Pittsburgh Technology Council and said, teach me how to sell. So that's actually how I recruit, focusing on what I'm missing, what I'm lacking, what I'm not naturally good at, not because I cannot get decent at it, it's because maybe I don't need to be amazing at it. I can rely on someone else to guide me through the process.
I love that so much, Nisha, thinking about the things you're not good at and the things that you don't need to develop yourself to be good at and finding the people that fill in the blanks there is pretty wonderful. I think that leads me into asking you a question, Kelly, and that is, what have you learned about being deliberate with your networking strategy as you build out your board?
I think that's an easy example for me when I really needed to be deliberate and make some changes would be probably during my biggest career shift back when I'd left my corporate job and started our own company. So that until that point in my life, everybody that was on my board they were really mentors. So people that I looked to for guidance, who helped me with career transitions and professional growth and those types of relationships. But once I stepped out on my own, everything changed. I realized I needed a completely different support system, entrepreneurs, founders, people that I could lean on in a totally different way. And that transition really helped me, force me really to evaluate who's on my board, who's sitting at my table, and deliberately form new relationships to fill the gaps that I didn't even realize existed. So one thing I've learned really is, I mean, your board, it truly does evolve with you over time.
That, I think, Kelly, is the most beautiful segue into your section of the framework, which is how do you invite people? Before we move into that, though, I do want to show what I think is a beautiful graphic that if you're the type of person that likes to take screenshots or pictures of your slides, you should do that because this will allow you to find what I think is one of the best books about career development that is out there and is written by our own Neysha. So, Neysha, before we shift into Kelly's section of the framework, which is invite, can you tell us really quickly about your very popular and extremely helpful book that I've shared with everybody on my team?
Thank you so very much, Shannon, that you're very kind. For anyone who's interested, the QR code to access the book is on the corner of the slide. I invite you to take a look at that. And basically, this one is depicting an overall representation of what your board could look like. Um, there's you, right? You are the ultimate value of this board of directors. And in order to do that, you have a subject matter mentor, industry mentor, maybe a coach part of that, a lifestyle mentor, someone that you admire because they have a good harmonization of work and life. Your passion mentor. I have met in my practice so many people that are working their 9 to 5 and then dedicate their afternoons to their passion project or to their side gigs. But there's someone so much better in that area. So bring them also to your board so that they can guide you how they transition to the process and how can they do better. You also need an advocate, and this is incredibly important. That person that even they are not too vocal towards you, behind their scenes, they're cheering you on, they're talking about you, giving you the good representation of the work that you do that will help put your name in the rooms that you are not present in. So that's the goal of this picture. You do not need a board of director only for your career, only for your business. It's in all areas of your life.
Beautiful, Neysha. Thank you so much. I know this book has changed so many people's lives. And now that you've got me singing Hamilton, the room where it happens,
Oh, you too.
Kelly, how do we get invited to the room?
Oh, what a show. So that leads us into the next step in the framework. Perfectly put would be the invite. So once you've identified what you need from your board, the next step is then inviting people in. And honestly, this part is about building relationships. So it starts with treating networking as relationship building. So quantity over quantity, quality over quantity. It's not about filling seats, it's about finding the right support system. So, and as you're building these relationships, lead with curiosity. Go into these conversations not to sell yourself, but to learn about them, ask questions, get to know them, figure out what motivates them and what their goals are. Neysha, I'm going to throw it over to you. What strategies do you have when you're building relationships? Or any
For
examples of what's worked for you?
For me, the most important thing is the energy that I feel with that person. Like I'm talking to that person, I know they are expert in their field. Is there resonance between our energies, our life values, our missions in life. They don't have to be the same, but at least they have to be cohesive so that it doesn't become a burden to either of us if I decide to to invite in the future that person. And definitely the last thing is evaluating if I can help them as much as I think they can help me. So those are my two strategies to connecting with someone and making them part of my board.
I love that. And so, like you said too, I mean, the biggest thing whenever you're doing this piece of the framework is having an established relationship of some sort before you invite somebody in. So you don't want to start with a stranger. It should be somebody that you already know, admire, trust, or just have a natural connection with or have collaborative energy with. And then when you're ready to reach out, just remember it does not need to be a big formal ask. Keep it simple, sincere. A good approach is leading with gratitude and then extending the invitation. An example could be your work on X really inspired and helped shape my thinking. Would you be open to being a sounding board as I continue to grow in this area? What you want to avoid are requests like, can I pick your brain? Or can we grab coffee sometime? Without any context or agenda, or starting with a favor right off the bat. Can you introduce me to so and so? I think Shannon, I know we've talked about this before, but do you have any examples of what are just pet peeves when people reach out to you, like what not to do?
It's heading into it with an unstructured request, like you mentioned, Kelly, which is, can I pick your brain? I'm so happy to have my brain picked. I love it. I've had many people who've pulled me upwards. I'd like to return the favor. But when somebody says specifically, I have a request and here's what I think you can fulfill, it allows
Mhm.
me to come so much more prepared to the meeting. I can come with resources, with suggested introductions, and it really just sets the stage. And so I agree with you, Kelly. You don't have to be too formal about your ask, but knowing again what the end game is, how you want somebody to fit in is always going to be so much more helpful. I had a great message last week on LinkedIn. It was a cold outreach. Somebody who said, hey, I watched a video you did on change management on YouTube. Here are the three things that you said that I found interesting, and one I disagree with. Would you like to get together and talk about it? And I could not respond faster to that message. So I think my pet peeve, Kelly, is just that. If you have an unstructured or unsupported request, it makes it really challenging for me to know how I can add value to you. So, great advice that you gave here.
What a great example that was too of intent, just reaching out with intention. Because you want to be asking yourself, when you're doing these invites, how can I show up for them too? And it could be as simple as sharing an article or celebrating a win or offering to make an introduction to them for somebody in your network. So a board should never really feel like a one-way street. It should feel like a collaboration. And finally, you just want to normalize the ask. Don't overcomplicate it. Remember, it's not about adding a name to your board. It's about building a relationship where you both benefit and grow together. When it's authentic, people are usually honored to be included and excited to be part of the journey. So, which I think leads us into the next step of the framework. And that's where the real power happens and what happens next, I think. That's when those relationships become intentional and active and defined. And I'm going to hand that off to my dearest friend, Neysha.
Awesome. So the next step in our framework is activate. You have identified the people, you have made the ask. So what do you do? Well, the next step is to move on purpose and with purpose. You ask the questions and then determine what is it that you need and how can you best fulfill that need. Determine how are you going to connect with that person. Is it going to be by a regular set of meetings, or is it going to be by reaching out whenever each other needs something, or are you going to share updates? You have to determine what would you like the best, and then go to the person and see what works for them. But go exactly as Shannon said, go with your overall strategy. Hey, I am building this particular thing, or I am trying to grow in my role, or I am whatever that is. I would love for us to meet maybe quarterly. Would that work for you? Because when you start with the particular goal and what would work better for that person, for you, and then compare it to that person, what happens is that it activates in the other person's brain that problem solving of, yes, I want to help you and I am going to make the time. Or maybe it is, I want to help you, but my plate is very, very full. So maybe let's take it on as needed basis in order for us to benefit from each other. So make sure that you establish the strategy for connection. And once you establish that strategy for connection, be prepared. I think we are going to talk about this many, many times today, and we have already done. Go with an agenda with the specific things that you would like to cover during your time together, because that will allow the person to prepare to serve your particular needs or your particular questions better and maximize the time. I cannot emphasize this enough. Respect their time as much as you would like your time to be respected. And as Kelly mentioned before, say thank you, right? That person took out time of their day to focus on your particular goals. You are going to be reciprocal to that. You're going to offer that at some point to that person too. But be grateful regardless of whether you find the advice of that particular day helpful or not. It doesn't matter. You're grateful for their presence, you're grateful for their full attention to you. So be grateful and express that gratitude. Finally, also remember that these roles are not permanent. If these roles are permanent in your life, then you have a problem because you're staying stuck in your life. These roles are meant to move as you move through your career, move in on your life, and depending on the other person's stage on their life too. One thing that I do want to say is that if you change roles, and if in my particular case, I changed from the corporate world to entrepreneurship, communicate that to your current board. Hey, I still think that you can help me in these particular areas of my life as I move to this new world of mine, but if that doesn't work for you any longer, that is totally, totally fine. So, with that, I have two questions. Question number one, Kelly, how do you activate your more board members more specifically?
Well, I think in our situation, in our board, it happened really organically. The three of us were spending quite a lot of time together, one-on-one as a group. And I think we all kind of realized we were all showing up for each other in really intentional ways after a while. We weren't just swapping stories, we were giving honest feedback, we were holding each other accountable, we were celebrating each other's wins. And I think that's what activation looks like, right? It's when a friendship really becomes intentional and purposeful. And when you start having the kind of conversations like that that really move each other forward.
I love that. It's so, so true. Ours, I think, is a very, very special case when we network grew into a friendship and then discovered the wonderfulness, at least I discovered the wonderfulness in it in both of your brains and say, okay, let's use this more productively for each other. So I love your perspective, Kelly. How about Shannon? I do have a difficult question for you too. Have you ever had to fire anyone from your board?
Uh, so this is a difficult question, and it comes with, I think, a little bit of emotional introspection. I had a very specific situation in 2021. I was diagnosed with rectal cancer, and I kept the list of who I was going to tell very small because I knew I was going to head into it with the concept I was beating it. And I think everybody around me was like, great, let me know how I can support you while you beat this thing into submission, which I did do for anybody who doesn't know that story. Healthy, feeling good. But the one person who was on my board and a core member of my board over a few different career changes, who I assigned the chief strategy officer, their immediate response was, that is so sad. And I was angry at that response because I didn't need pity, I didn't need sadness. I needed people to say, I'm going to rally around you and here's how I'm going to help you and show up for you. And I realized once that person said, that is so sad. It changed the way that I felt about them, and it maybe also changed the way they felt about me. So it came to be a realization for me that this person could no longer be a productive part of my board for what I needed them to do. So I did have to have a board reorganization. It happens in corporate world and it worked very well for me. So I shifted away from that person. I still maintain the friendship. It's a lovely friendship, but I recognized that the energy that that person could bring to the board was no longer going to be the same sort of exchange that it was before. And I think being able to be open to say, as I metamorphosize, it may mean that people on my board do as well. And it can be a challenging breakup. You know, you might have to have a formal conversation, or you might have to just sort of shift away from inviting that person into your quarterly meetings or whatever they are. So, yes, it happens. And I think it's critical for us to make sure that our board continues to be fed and watered, but also pruned.
I love that example, Shannon, because at the end of the day, while you are going to give back to that person, right, with your own particular set of skill sets, at the end of the day, you have to remember what is the purpose of your board, which is your growth, your development, your success. And anyone who doesn't contribute to that, you need to revisit that. And sometimes, like you said, Shannon, have the difficult conversation. So I absolutely love that. So the last step of our framework, we are going to talk about it together, which is nurture. Cultivate relationships, not favors. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone is trying to request something from me, not only like Shannon said, without any context, but I don't even know you and you're already reaching out to me, right? Requesting something. Approach it with intention. Don't waste time, but make sure that if you do not know the person, that you start by cultivating the relationship and learning a little bit more about them with genuine curiosity and with a genuine desire of what can you offer, while that person could be able or could not be able to offer you something. Once you go with what can I offer first, the energy and the dynamic on the conversation changes, providing more openness to this particular endeavor, which is creating your own board. So, Kelly, do you have some real world examples of how nurturing those relationships work?
I do actually. Um, back whenever we had started just planning for this event, the first time, and what we were going to talk about, I was just thinking about the three of us, and I did a little personal brainstorming session just for myself, thinking through all the things that we do together, just to give some real world examples. And I feel like I can actually just read that list right here.
Awesome. Go for it.
Because there's a lot of there's a lot of good stuff in here. Um, so for some examples, we do monthly meetings, everyday texts, make introductions for each other, give business referrals, navigate new business regulations. We do spa retreats, salt caves, holiday dinners. We go to comedy shows, high teas, sanity checks. We've seen each other through doctoral programs and dissertations, pandemics, recommendations for marketing supplies or books to read, starting maybe sharing a new tech platform or new app, proofreading each other's presentations, RFPs, authored books, parenting, navigating our aging parents' health. We share our goals. We hold each other accountable. We share our wins. We share our lessons learned. Try not to cry. We celebrate. We laugh. We love. We grieve. We support each other through the ups and downs and everything in between. So,
I love that. I
mm,
love that. Now you're gonna make me cry.
I didn't.
As you can see, this is goes beyond achieving your growth, your goals, and being successful. Is a holistic approach to the whole version of you, to the holistic version of you. Shannon, can you talk about how can we make those relationships bi-directional?
I think that is so critical. And when we think about having a board or being mentored, we often are thinking about pushing upwards. So, how can I find somebody who's been there who can give me information on the potholes in the road ahead? And what is really critical is to remember there's somebody who also hasn't been where you are yet. And so, as one hand is reaching up, you should also think about a hand that's reaching down. So, who it is that is behind you that you can help. And very often, and one of the reasons why I love so much working at the university is the questions and the fresh experience and the curiosity that may come from somebody who hasn't yet been where you are might help you to remain relevant and focused on your own intellectual curiosity as well. And so I think one of the things I really want to impart upon everybody is these relationships really have to be bidirectional. So the people that are acting as your board, while you have things to give to them, they may also have things to give to you. And you might find new people who you're acting as a board member to as well. And when we first presented this, it was to a room of mostly early career women in technology. And a lot of them were asking us later, how can I even find somebody who hasn't done what I've done yet? And it doesn't mean find somebody younger. You know, if you're 22 and it's your first year in your career, you don't have to find a 17-year-old necessarily, but you might find somebody who is in one of the other, there are 5 generations in the workforce right now. So you might find somebody who doesn't know how to do things as well as you do when it comes to prompting generative AI. Or it may be somebody who truly doesn't know how to work with the shifting photos in Microsoft Word. So you're always going to have something that you can offer to people, whether they're
Yeah.
older, younger, late career, early career. And so it's always thinking holistically, you know, people are giving to me, what can I give back to them?
I love that. I absolutely love that. I do have one example about that. One networking event, someone was asking me about launching a business, and I discovered that she was a dynamo in social media. So 7 years ago, she taught me how to use social media other than to share pictures of my kids. So yes, do not constrain yourself for what you think and the perception that you have of who should be part of anyone's board. You never know until you expand that relationship how amazing you can be and how much of an asset you can be to that person too. I absolutely love that. So, Shannon, I think we have a challenge.
We do have a challenge. So, anyone who's a marketer knows we're never going to end anything without a call to action. And our call to action to you today is to think about who the first person is that you're going to invite onto your personal board. So, I want to challenge you to commit to inviting at least one person onto your personal board before you end this week. So, think about who that person may be and roll back through that framework that we gave you so that you can invite them onto your personal board and start building out what's going to be a very lovely experience for you personally and professionally.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Well, this is the last part of our presentation. However, we would like to open it up for questions. Before we open it up for questions, if you scan this QR code, you're going to be guided to my mailing list, which have a plethora of gifts that you can use in order to maintain a centered and balanced emotional system as you navigate through complex challenges. There are grounding tools, there are meditations, there are many, many tools to ensure your well-being as you navigate challenging and demanding environments. So I encourage you to take advantage of all of those free gifts. Now, with that out of the way, we would love to hear your questions. So please use the Q&A um, area of the Zoom, type your question, and one of us will answer it. So, any questions that anyone may have?
I have one here. How do you balance between friendship and asking for help?
Oh, I love that. Um, so it will depend. I'm gonna take that. It will depend on the type of friendship that you have, right? Um, if it is a friendship that uh is pretty reciprocal, you're there for that person and that person is there for you, there shouldn't be any particular issue asking, right? But you, as a friend, should also ask the difficult questions to understand what is the type of skill set and strength that this person that could benefit you. And what are the skill sets that you have that could benefit this other person? I have many, many friends that I would never invite to be part of my board because they just have other goals in their life and other focuses in their life. And it's just not something that is going to benefit each other. However, as a friend, just to vent or to open up our hearts and support in other areas, absolutely, that's no problem. So that's actually how I balance a little bit. Shannon, Kelly, any points on that?
I think that was perfect.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, the next question is when asking the person, is there a time and on the commitment to be on the board? Oh, so I think the question is, do you present with an end in mind?
And I think,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead, Kelly.
yeah, just I think that depends on how formal you are, what you need in that moment. If you need something that's more formalized, and or maybe it's your genuine board on your company, that's one thing. But I mean, I know that in my relationships, we usually have it, and you guys can jump in too. But kind of maybe even just there could be a time frame where maybe if you're going through this career transition and there's somebody that you could really benefit and grow and learn from this person, and if you ask them, hey, over the next year, I'm expecting to make a move. Are you open to working with me and being sounding board over this period of time? Sure, I think that makes sense, but I don't think you need to either.
My personal opinion is to leave it open-ended and make the decision as you move along, because maybe during those interactions, you discover that there are so many amazing strengths that you didn't even realize this person had. I love Kelly's idea, right? To give yourself the safety net of, oh, it's during this year, and then determine and expand instead of having to have the difficult conversation. Okay, we're not working anymore,
Or
right?
this relationship is over, I say.
Yes,
And
but
leave the groundwork moving.
it kind of depends, because if you start by meeting the person first and truly getting to know that person before even thinking about an ask, you will have a sense, and I am all into intuition and energy and all of that. So you will have a sense of whether this is worth to have on a long term, no end in mind type of relationship, or if this is going to be something that is just for that particular purpose that you're trying to accomplish. So I would definitely encourage you to do that self-assessment first and err on the side of safety for your own mental health and well-being.
I Christy is one of my besties, and she's who asked the question. So I want to give an example that I think is pertinent for Christy and also for you, Neysha, because you're both working on finishing your doctorates. And I think if you have a very particular use case, like I'm working on my doctorate and I need somebody who can help me understand the overall strategy of when to turn it in or how to interact with my dissertation committee members, that might be somebody that you invite into your life for a very set period of time. So if you've got a situation like that that is time constrained, then it's pretty clear. But otherwise, I think Kelly, Neysha, what you talked about is very sensible to say. There may be some people who are in it for the long haul, and so you don't want to artificially create a like, I want you to be on the board for a 2-year term, you know. Um, but continue to stay fluid on the contributions that you can both make to each other.
Awesome. We have two more questions there. The first one is, what is a fair compensation for a board member? I love these questions. It kind of depends on the nature of what you're engaging that board member for. So I have a friend, lifelong friend from when I moved to Pittsburgh, and her husband and I just push her to leave her corporate job and launch her own business because she was so good at it, right? So our board integration with each other was a little bit more formal. It was literally, we are having a board meeting. And yes, it was on our kitchen counters, but it had an agenda, it had a purpose in mind, etc. So the agreement that we put together within each other was to any mutual referral of business, they will get a percentage and that will be the compensation, right? It kind of depends on the seat that that person is occupying on your board. If it is a very professional that they are assisting you with the revenue of your business, absolutely there should be a compensation. And you have to determine that compensation based on the amount of work that you put into your engagement versus that person introducing you, because you don't want to shortchange yourself saying, okay, if it's a 30% or 40%, and then suddenly you're left with 70% for operating the engagement and paying your employees or your resources, etc. Right? But it again, it kind of depends on the type of seat that that person is occupying in your board and if they are assisting you in the growth of your business or your life, etc. Financially in order to do that particular compensation. Shannon, Kelly, do you have any questions? Any thoughts on that?
I think that was a good example of a time where you would, right?
I do have a business coach, and that is an arrangement where I pay her for her time. So she holds me to task on my financial performance and analysis, my monthly end results. So, she puts time into those specific things. So that is a paid arrangement. I think again, it depends on the role that person plays in your personal board. I think that's a really good question and probably something to be transparent about from the very beginning. Would you
Yeah,
like to be on my board? What type of compensation should we be evaluating? And they probably will say no, none. But getting it out there and having that discussion allows you to set the tone that we're able to discuss hard things together.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So we have a question from James Sultan. First of all, thank you so much for your time. So great to hear from you again, Jane. I got burned out with networking events and social media over the last 5 years. I'm chuckling because, yes, absolutely, been there. Uh, Starting in 2026 and attempting to re-engage without getting overwhelmed with the amount of information and follow-up needing to build new relationships while also focusing on continuing education. Any advice to prevent the burnout cycle? Hell yes. Much
I'd
advice here.
like for you to take that.
We are, and I say we because the three of us have gotten so good at this over the last year and a half. We are very intentional on the events that we say yes to and we say no to. Okay. The first thing on burnout is to be in alignment with what are you truly looking for and why are you looking for that. For example, when I started my business, I could have even 18 events during 1 week only because I really want to get my business known. I want a visibility for the work that I did in order to get clients, right? That's not the case anymore. And I had to come to terms with that realization. I don't need to attend everything to be an effective networker. I don't need to be in every single person's face to be an effective networker. I am just very selective on the type of audience and the theme of the events that I attend to in order for then determine is it worth my time or not. Jane, from my perspective, I have four pillars in my life. Me first, my family and my friendships, and finally my business. If the event or the person doesn't move the needle in those fours, it's just not happening. So, in order to prevent the overall burnout, whether it's networking burnout or personal burnout, you really need to do a deep self assessment of yourself, of who you are, what are your values, what are you up for, what would you like to be remembered by. Once you define those and define your own four pillars, then what benefit will the person that you just met or the networking event that appear in your calendar, what benefit does it bring to those areas in your life, and make a decision, because yes, you can't get burnout by attending everything. Shannon, Kelly, any additional inputs there?
Well, I think that's such a great piece of guidance there, Neysha, and it's kind of like once you get those pillars defined for yourself, you can use that as your framework as you're assessing what networking events you are going to attend. And do these align with what is most important to me and what my goals are? So it kind of helps you, sift through all of the options that are out there on any given day, right? And then because sometimes, I mean, often, you'll go to these things and you'll come home and they just nothing really came of it, but maybe it does a few years later. You just never really know. But the more intentional you can be on the back end, the more likely it's going to turn into something that's worthwhile. And being intentional when you're there too, go in with goals. I do know these are the people that I'd love to speak with. Whenever I talk to them, I want to make sure I ask them about this. I want to make sure maybe we can set up this afterwards to discuss this further. But just making the most of your time so you're not having to go to a networking event every night. You're just going to the ones that really make sense, that are most likely as well aligned to your goals as they can be.
I don't know if one of the three of us said this or if we heard it from somebody else, but we've repeated it so many times, and it is my easiest check yes or no whenever there's an event that I am enticed to go to. And that is, if it is not a hell yes, it is a no. So that's my easiest advice, Jane. If you aren't like, I have to be there, then probably not.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm going to add, even when it is a hell yes, and even when you check the mission of the event and the attendees, and it sounds that there's a resonance with your own personal goals, you still can be disappointed, right? So it's just reducing that sense of disappointment by preparing a little bit in advance, and ensuring that you go with clear goals and clear outcomes that you want to accomplish.
100%.
Any other question? Thank you, Jay.
Well, I think this was lovely and wonderful, and I want to thank you two for saying yes to doing this the first time. It was so much fun at WitCon, and it was even more fun today because we got to do it from the comfort of our own homes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, even better.
I want to thank everybody who joined. This was such a great, engaged crowd. This is so exciting to have you all here. We've thrown up here our LinkedIn QR codes because we really do want to connect with you. We're very serious about that. So please connect with us. Neysha, Kelly, any final thoughts before we head off into the rest of our workday on April Fools?
Well, thank you all so
Um,
much for being.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you, everyone. And I think the as women, we are conditioned since forever about not asking, right? And it takes a lot of courage, you will think, about asking. What if they're gonna say no? That's something that I hear a lot. You're gonna ask that person something, but they are the CEO of whatever, whatever. So I just want to demystify the ask. I think we talked about it during the presentation. Go with like Shannon's example, go with a straight value proposition, mutual value proposition, first for the person that you're asking. Your value is going to be that. And the worst thing that they could do is say no. And nothing happens if you say no. So don't be afraid of the no.
So true.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will be sending the recording to everybody so that you have this to reference back to. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.